Welcome to this week's special edition of the Recruitment Reality podcast. Some of you may have seen that on my LinkedIn I put out a call to speak to candidates that are currently in the open job market, looking for opportunities, and are willing to come on a podcast. And I am so grateful to Josh. Josh is the first volunteer to come through, and I think he's going to have a good story for us. I'm really hopeful that basically somebody hears this and thinks Josh is a great guy, I need to get in contact and connect with him, so we'll sort all that out at the end. But also, what's going to be really valuable is there's a lot of talk amongst recruiters about what it's like to be a candidate. There's a lot of talk about what the market's like at the moment. Do you really know what it's like until you've been a candidate in it? Probably not, or at least not as close as somebody that has. So I thought this was a really valuable opportunity for us to give Josh some airtime, but also get some really sort of important feedback for us as TAs. So Josh, I'm not going to try and do an intro for you, so it'd be great to hear a little bit about your background, your situation at the moment, and yeah, just a quick intro, really.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you so much for having me, Andrew. I'm glad to hear that I'm the so far the only one crazy enough to do this with you, but no, but I really appreciate it, and I took a look at your background and sort of your post there, and I can tell that you're really trying to do a good thing and give us a platform, also learning a lot more about your counterparts in the other side of the interview process, which I think speaks volumes. In terms about me, I'm a sales leader with a passion for coaching and developing others, especially in consultative sales within innovative products. I have 8 years of client-facing experience, 4 of which were at high-growth fintech startups like Acorns and Better. But what you really need to know about me is 3 things. 1, my level of resiliency. 2, my willingness to do whatever it takes to get things done. And 3, I want to love what I do and those who I work with. So I'll tell you a little story that kind of encapsulates all those things for me. So about 10 years ago, I was in my final year at college, and I was on a 5-year program for a 4-year degree. If you know, you know. And so I was like, okay, I really gotta get this going. And so I was like, if I line it up perfectly, I'll be able to also travel to Europe for the summer. I've never been out of the country. I'm saving up, working all through college, all through high school. And I think this will be the perfect motivation to make sure I'm on track all the way through. One day I wake up and my right ankle is swollen, and I thought it had happened from playing hockey. And I was like, I don't really remember that injury, but I go to the doctor and he's like, yeah, we'll put you on crutches and you'll be fine in a month. And I was like, okay. A month goes by, my left ankle swells. And I'm like, this is so weird. I come back and he's like, yeah, we're not really sure what's going on. And now all of a sudden I'm out of class and I'm starting to fall behind on my plan. And another month goes by and suddenly there's inflammation all over my body. And I finally make it to a rheumatologist and he tells me you have an autoimmune disease. And I was like, what's an autoimmune disease? And he's like, well, it's gonna be something that you're dealing with the rest of your life. Yeah. And I was like, wow. So I don't say that to garner any pity. I'm grateful for the experience. And I want everybody to know that because it taught me a lot about myself and it kind of gave me a lot more self-awareness. But I would be lying if I said I didn't feel bad for myself at that moment. But a lot of people talk about focusing on what you can control, but until you're really put in a position where you really need to focus on what you can control.
That's a bit different, yeah.
It was a different level. And so I was like, well, I can focus on what I'm eating. I dove deep into biohacking, into diet, into managing my stress levels, and I said I'm still going to graduate. I was 3 months behind now, but I took online classes. I took classes from another community college to make up for the missed time. A year goes by. I'm the kid that was crutching into class for a year, and people like, why aren't you getting any better? And I was like, well, So in any case. So we make it down to the end, and it's 2 weeks before graduation. I'm like, well, I'm going to graduate. I made it all happen. I'm not going to walk down the aisle to get my diploma, but I'll be able to get down there. Finally get put on this medication that ends up being the perfect thing for me, and all my symptoms go away. And I had 2 weeks to kind of get my muscles back, and I walked down the aisle, picked up my diploma, and then I hopped on a plane right after I went to Europe. And nice. I think what that taught about me is like my level of resiliency to get through things, like I said before, willingness to take whatever it takes to get things done. And now I have a new perspective on what's important to me, and I don't compromise in the companies that I work with and the work that I put out, because I know that tomorrow is not guaranteed. So that sort of sums me up, I think.
Amazing. What a story. That's, I take it you mean ice hockey, just clarifying.
Yeah,
For the
that's right.
European listeners.
Oh, yeah, thank you.
I played field hockey.
Oh,
so
okay.
that's where it gets confusing. But yeah, I can only imagine thinking, oh, I must have taken a tumble and hurt my ankle, to holy shit, I've got an autoimmune disease. That's like next level shock, basically.
It's heavy. It's heavy. Yeah.
Crazy. So really great story. Thank you for sharing that personal story, Josh. I really appreciate it. In terms of sort of most recent background, etc. So you say you're sales leader. Just for context, you obviously said you worked in fintechs, etc. Where have you left recently, and I guess what are you kind of looking for in the future, basically?
Yeah. So I left a mortgage fintech, better.com, going through massive layoffs at the time. I'm sure it's the same way in the UK and the rest of Europe with rates going up. It's sort of obliterated the mortgage industry, at least over here in the States, especially. So since then, I've been definitely doing some soul searching, as obviously I've done in the past, and I realize leading other teams and being in a sales environment where you're working closely with clients is ultimately what I want to do. I'm focused on, again, sort of innovative products and being within that type of tech forward environment, mission driven companies, things of that nature. Once you're in those kind of fast-paced, ambiguous kind of environments, it's addicting. It's hard to get out, and especially being able to make that type of an impact on teams is super fun. So that's sort of what I've been focusing on.
Absolutely. I think the thing that's most exciting about those companies is usually there isn't a team. It's usually a group of individuals running around trying to make sure the ship doesn't sink. And then actually when you bring in a sales leader, then it's about, going, all the holes in the ship are now filled. We're all right. We're buoyant. Now how do we, raise the sail and go faster, basically?
Exactly. Yeah. I was on a pilot program at Better where we scaled the team from 50 to 1,000, and it was one of those, just like you said, you're plugging in holes, and you're like, okay, we don't want to just float. We want to, soar. So I totally understand what you're saying.
Awesome. Okay, great. Well, look, so really appreciate the overview. I guess what would be good is to kind of transition from your background into your kind of your experience of the open waters of the job market at the moment, just to stick with the metaphor. How are you generally finding it? Like, how are you applying for jobs? How's the response? Like, how is it actually out there as a candidate?
Yeah, and I think right now the way that I'm finding jobs is I'm really focused on using LinkedIn in order to find those. And the tough part about that is that there's a lot of companies that don't want to pay to have their posts on LinkedIn too, and I've come to realize that. I don't know if all candidates know that there's a lot of smaller companies that won't put their job listings on there. And so you kind of have to dig deep into places like Angel List, into places like Built-in. Built-in is one where it has sex, like Built-in LA or Built-in, other areas of the country to find startup opportunities. Because I've realized in terms of my search that the companies that are about 100 to 1,000, hard to get in. The ones that are 1,000 plus or under 100, a little bit easier, because either A, they're okay with you having not all the experience that they're looking for, but they like your personality and your grit. Those are the smaller companies. And then 1,000 plus, they're willing to take you on perhaps because they have a robust enablement program or something like that. It's those mid companies that tend to be hard to crack. And I've seen some statistics about this too. So finding those companies that have, less than 50, less than 20 people can be a challenge sometimes. Although I think there's so much talent on the market that these companies can really benefit from people who have been at large companies and scaled processes. But that's been an overview in terms of how I'm looking.
And are they so the mid company, are they the ones that you're like kind of focused on? That's the level that you want to go in at, so that you can help them scale to being large, or is that? Go on, I'll let you answer.
Yeah, yeah, I think well, I'm not really targeting, company size quite as much, but what I've realized now is terms of like statistically getting opportunities, it's easier if it's, over 1,000 or sort of under 100,
Yeah.
but I think that my skill set is more fitted towards, a company that's around 100, 200 people that's looking to scale up to 500, 1,000, because that's what I experienced on my team in the sales org at Better. But like I mentioned, they're hard to crack. So finding those. The other thing I've noticed too is I think right now with the applicant pool being so large that companies need two things. One, they need somebody that's going to solve their problems right away, and they want to mitigate risk in hiring because it's very expensive to hire somebody. And with a lot of layoffs happening, they need to make sure that every single person there can hold their own. And I think they know that now they can sort of wait as long as possible to find the perfect candidate, because odds are, Amazon's going to lay them off tomorrow, right? And so you're always going to find, so you're competing against people who are having 100% of the job description and plus. So switching industries right now is kind of, even in the slightest can be a challenge.
That's so interesting, because I think there's a lot said about there still being a talent shortage and a talent war and all of that, and I get it, but at the same time, I can see it from your side, and I don't mean this as an insult, but I mean this as short-mindedness of recruiters. Is if somebody's been laid off from Amazon, they've done a 7-stage interview process, which includes like a 5-hour one-on-one assessment. They're going to be good, right? Whereas the risk mitigation versus a resume like yours, which is equally as strong, but not from the same, Amazon world, etc. It's difficult to not be biased as a recruiter, I guess. So we got to kind of challenge that. What are you seeing in terms of like remuneration packages and stuff like that? Are you seeing any changes, downward pressure, like companies? So as you rightly said, they're taking longer, waiting to find the right person. Are they also trying to hammer people on sort of remuneration packages now? And are you seeing downward pressure on that too?
Well, honestly, I hope that remuneration package is a term mostly used in the UK, because personally, so I'm unfamiliar. Could you clarify that for me?
It's a basic salary, comp.
Oh, salary. Oh, wow. Okay.
Comp.
I'm gonna say remuneration package from now on. That's much.
Yeah.
That's much more colorful. So,
yeah, it's better than comp. Because comp's not even a full word, right?
I'm from California, where we abbreviate everything, so we probably just say comp over here. But okay, yeah. So, and I think in that case, I've noticed, well, recruiters are always going to ask you what your salary range is, but I've noticed that they've been a lot more upfront. Well, based on your experience, I think what we're going to do is we're going to give you the low end of the salary band versus. Before, I don't really remember hearing that very directly before. And I think it just goes to show the psychology of the person that you're working with, that when they're okay telling you like, oh, yeah, you're not going to make the salary band's 130 to 150. They're like, we'll probably put you in 130. And I'm like, oh, wow. Okay. This is an interesting job market. Before it was like, what do you want?
What can I do to get you? Yeah.
Yeah. So, I think my experience too is coming from tech, right? So I know that this isn't going to be the same for everybody, but right now that in the US anyway, that's what I've been experiencing.
Have you considered moving out of tech because of the challenges specific to, our market basically?
I have, but I think the issue comes from the fact that when you're in a tech environment, you grow and you learn so fast, and you are constantly challenged in ways that sometimes in a traditional environment, things move slow, or there's so much red tape, you can't affect any change. You can't really get some of the projects you want to done. And it can, and this is definitely, I'm making a generalization that probably isn't fair. But, in terms of what I typically have seen and sort of the overall culture of you know, non-progressive companies, let's just put it that way. I love working with diverse teams too. I love working with other people who are attracted to that same type of mission, who are attracted to those same types of values, who are attracted to flexible PTO, right? And me as a leader, I don't want flexible PTO personally. I want to be able to give that to other people. So when somebody's having a tough time, I can say, hey, take Friday off. You know, obviously you need a mental health day. And as a, you know, so it just changes the whole dynamic in which you're leading teams when you have these different benefits and these perks and these ERG groups, and creates a lot of fulfillment. So that's all to say. It's quite addicting to be in a tech environment in that sense, and you get used to those types of dynamics, which can be very powerful.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I think personally, my fear is actually that a lot of those benefits, because of the fact that people, similar to your comp discussion, you know, you're at the entry level of it. No, it doesn't feel like people are really fighting for the talent. My fear is actually that those benefits will also, you know, start to degrade over time, like the flexible PTO, that kind of stuff. And everybody will suddenly go, well, you've all got to be in the office because you've got to be under control, times are tight, etc. I really hope it doesn't happen. And I'm sure there will be outliers of companies that continue to work the way that they should work. But yeah, it's really interesting. So I'd love to have this conversation, Josh, like in 12 months, hopefully when you've got a job, and you know, see what the kind of lay of the land is. I'd like to switch gears, if that's all right, just to talk about the candidate experience. So one thing that's really interesting already is the fact that you're struggling to find the sort of mid-level companies because they're not presenting themselves well enough. So that to me is like, mid-level companies, let's up our game and make sure that, you know, people like Josh can find your opportunities. Secondly, is just some insight around like the process that you've gone through. So post-application, you know, somebody's reviewed your resume or whatever. What's been the good and bad kind of experiences that you've had from an interview perspective?
Yeah. So I think let's start with the good experience would be where you have a conversation with a recruiter who has read your resume. And that can sound like, you know, wait, what are you talking about? But you can tell when somebody has just sort of, you know, they sent you an automated email about wanting to talk to you. They send you a Calendly link. You get on, you know that they just hopped onto this meeting, maybe even kind of forgot that this was going to be a recruitment meeting. They're just jumping from meeting to meeting that day. And, you know, and I know how that goes, trust me. But, you know, when somebody says, yeah, well, why don't you walk me through your resume? The first question, I'm just like, why don't you just read my resume and like, let's talk about why I'm going to be a good fit for the role. Why don't we have a different type of discussion? Because, you know, it's like, I've been stressing about this for, you know, 48 hours, right? And I've been thinking about all the things that I want to say, and I've been practicing my responses. And so when we just have this very surface level conversation, it's so underwhelming. And then sometimes when you get that, you know, denial after a first round, you're like, well, I didn't even get to say anything of substance, you know? So, I mean, I don't know. What are your thoughts on that? Have you...
Yeah, look, I mean, the average time spent reviewing a resume is 7.5 seconds. So, you know, it happens more often than it should. And I think there's a real disproportionate value to both sides, value and expectation, because the recruiter is going, I've got 100 resumes and I just need to get through them and see if this person's any good. And then the recruitee, the interviewee, is going, I've got 5 great opportunities that I'm working on right now. This is my number one. And the recruiter has not shown any empathy or appreciated the value of the call to the interviewee versus the value of the call to them, right? The value to you is job, mortgage, security, happiness. The value to them is filling a seat, getting through a CV, a screening call. And I think there's got to be, especially when there's mass layoffs, you know, et cetera, when the market is more difficult, recruiters have got to show that they actually care about the individual that they're speaking to. And I appreciate, you know, on the other side, they're driven by numbers. There's a lot of pressure on internal teams because they're getting cut. There's like, they were a team of 10, now they're a team of 2, and they're getting twice as many resumes. So there is pressure, but it doesn't take much to actually look at somebody's resume before a call and make sure that you have a valuable conversation, right?
Yeah,
For both
that's sort
parties.
of the ask. I think that's sort of the, like you mentioned, 6 seconds to view a resume when you're going through candidates makes total sense. It's like once you have somebody booked, it's like, okay, let's maybe getting a little bit more ramped up so we can have a deeper conversation about how I can help your team of 2 produce like a team of 10, right?
Yeah.
So in any case, but yes, we're on the same page there.
Yeah, absolutely. It is like I say, it's tough for both ends, but I just think in times that are tough, the key word is just empathy, really, in all situations. What about like feedback side of things? So when things haven't gone your way and you haven't, you've been rejected from a role or whatever, how well have people been giving feedback? How constructive has it been? Again, like what's the good and the bad of that side of things?
Yeah, and and maybe what we do too is we can come back to some of the good in terms of interview process, because I think we kind of focus on one of the areas of
One
opportunity,
aspect, yeah.
but we can so taking it in sort of areas of opportunity on feedback. I'm glad that you brought that up too, because I think what we need to learn how to do better as professionals, as colleagues, as friends, as family members, as leaders, it doesn't matter, is giving constructive feedback and getting over, our own egos and our own desire to be liked in order to actually help others. That was the biggest thing for me when I first became a sales leader, was I wanted my team to know that I cared about them so much, but then suddenly I had to tell them something that I knew was going to temporarily, be a blow to their self-esteem. And I had to just tell myself, like, I read this great book by Kim Scott, which is called Radical Candor. And it's so great because it talks about how you can give direct feedback in a way that's going to sting, but you can do it in a human way with empathy. So I recommend, all recruiters read this book, especially if you plan on being an HR leader at some point too, or something of that nature, a recruiting leader. But the point is that so much of the feedback I get are things outside of my control. So it's like, oh, well, we went with somebody who has more experience working with HCM software. I'm like, okay, well, and this is after sometimes a third interview. And I'm like, oh, why didn't
Was there nothing I could work on across 3 interviews?
I'm like, wait, why did we even interview the first time then? Because that's on my resume. And a lot of it is that type of, I haven't gotten any feedback yet that is actionable. Hey, I want to help you in terms of, help you with self-awareness, because I know you're in an interview. We're not always thinking straight. We can just say things. Well, you did say this at one point, which gave a little red flag about being a culture fit. I'd be like, whoa, yeah, that stinks to hear, but I'm glad you said that. I don't even remember saying that, right? This is just an example. When you gave an answer to this about your leadership style, what they were really looking for was this, things of that nature. So no, I haven't gotten any actual feedback yet that's been valuable after about 20 interviews, but I understand how difficult that is. Yeah. And I understand that their incentive to do that is not very high. What do they really have to gain for that discomfort of telling you? Yeah. But it really is a great skill to develop. Like I said, not just as a professional, but as a friend, as a family member, figuring out a way to do that with empathy to the people that we care about. So in any case.
So totally agree. As you're saying it, I'm reflecting. I'm like, in the most recent round of stuff, I definitely said to at least one candidate, we went with this person because of their experience, and probably didn't give enough. Because I gave them detailed feedback at the end of the interview of like, we do like a demo role play, and I always give really detailed feedback there.
Oh, okay.
And then sometimes it is really difficult to think, like, why have I gone with this person over them? It's just because they were a bit better, to be honest. Like, and how do I say to you, this is why they're a bit better. And absolutely, it's a get out of jail free card. Just like, oh, well, you know, they had this, and it's not actionable. I totally agree. And it's something that I will hold myself to account on in the future. And also, I totally agree. Like, from a feedback perspective, it's not just in recruitment, it's across the board. It's like being able to give constructive feedback that gets actioned or gets ignored. That's what the radical candor is, the 4 A's, right? Which is you can then acknowledge and then accept or reject the 2 things that you do as the receiver of the feedback. Cool. So we kind of missed the bit in the middle, as you rightly said.
Yeah.
Tell me, what good interviews have you had? What have you loved when you have gone in for your interviews?
Yeah. I'm so glad you asked that, because I've had some great. My most favorite interviews are the ones where the interviewer humanizes the experience up front, and they say, hey, you know, I know that interviews can be high stress, and, you know, but I want to get to know the real you. So I'm going to ask you, tell me about yourself, but I don't want you to recap your resume. I don't want you to tell me about, you know, your hobbies, unless it's relevant somehow to the job. But I want you to just tell me about who you are and why it's led you to me today. And so it kind of opens up, and I was like, okay, I love that, because so many people have no idea what somebody's really asking, and this person took the time to now really put me at ease, and then also make it very clear what they're looking for. I've had interviews where after the end I've gotten feedback that they're like, well, you know, we were looking for, you know, this, you to mention the type of sales methodologies that you use. And I was like, oh, I was never asked that, you know? So I'm like, you know, asking exactly what you want. And this person did that too. And they're like, well, I'm looking for this. Or they'd ask a question, I'd give the answer. And they were like, well, okay, let me ask this in a different way, because this is what I'm really asking. I'm like, oh my gosh, thank you so much. Because, you know, I can't necessarily read your mind, and we all interpret things differently. I mean, especially in a sales role, you learn that sometimes you need to say the same thing 3 different ways in order for that message to get across, no matter how clear you're speaking, right? So that's been so great. Actually, shout out to the team over at Ramp. That was a common thread throughout my interviews with them, which I really, really appreciated. And then another positive I would say too is getting a call afterward, especially after, you know, the second or third interview. Maybe not after the first, I can understand that, but let's say I'm going to get denied. I've had recruiters call me versus send me the rejection email, say, hey Josh, you know, so this is what's happening, this is why we're not going to go forward. And, you know, at the end of the day, versus a canned email response, you know, is really gratifying, and it makes you feel like, okay, they saw me for a person, you know. And here's the thing, we're all switching companies all the time, you know, and I'm always going to remember that recruiter that did that. And so, you know, if other people are reaching out to me and saying, hey, should I go work at this company, I'm working with this guy, and I've interviewed with him before, he's fantastic, you know what I'm saying. It's just good business to treat people like people, and I've had that experience with a few recruiters, which has been really, really nice.
You never know who's going to end up being your boss. That's the.
That's a good point.
That's the reality. Like, I think back at, you know, maybe in my early career as a recruiter where I neglected some candidates because I didn't know any better, and I thought you were just meant to move super fast paced, and I think, holy crap, where are they now? Like,
my goodness.
Just waiting to become my boss and bollock me. Which is totally fine. Please feel free, take it out. It's the reality is they probably won't. But I think the big lesson there is 2 lessons. So one is basically like your job as an interviewer. I think some people think it's to catch the candidate out. It's not. It's to get the best out of the candidate. You know, it's to ask those clarifying questions, open up the conversation, and see what they're like in a comfortable work environment. Not, I'm not going to tell you what I want to know because I just want you to know that's what I need to hear, which is just like insane when you think about it. Yeah. And then the other side is definitely around feedback. So again, if somebody called me and rejected me from a thing, I don't think I'd take it that well. So the way I do it slightly differently is I send an email, but I put a Loom video, which is totally personalized and gives the person feedback. And then I say, look, if you want any more clarification, then you can call me. Because not everybody, when you reject them, is open to hearing that they're getting rejected. Sometimes they just want to call you an arsehole and go, right? So that's the way I do it. Whether that, I can't decide, I'd love your opinion on whether you think that method is like just me copping out because I don't want to call them because I feel bad, or it is actually, what I think it is, which is giving them the opportunity to hear the feedback first, and then if they want to speak to me or never speak to me again, they have all the power. They have my personal mobile number and they can ring me at any point.
Yeah, and I love that you're asking that. It's like, again, the level of vulnerability and humility you bring to this is very refreshing. And I would say that in reflecting, I've had both situations where I get that email or the call, or perhaps, I've already developed enough rapport with the recruiter, and I do try to make a point to show somebody that, that I'm an easygoing person at the end of the day. So maybe that's why I'm getting these calls. Or maybe that's just their style. I'm not sure. But in terms of your method, I've never received a Loom video sort of softening that blow up front before. I've received the email that says, hey, call me for more detailed feedback, which I've appreciated. But the video is a great touch. And I think it just goes to show, like, wow, Andrew took the extra, 1 minute to say that too, on top of offering a call. That's fantastic. I think you're going above and beyond. I haven't seen that before.
I think if you just, it is definitely a cop-out if you send a, hey, call me and get feedback without any context, because nobody's going to call. And if they do, 1 in 10 is going to call, because 1 in 10 is a diligent person, and that person you should hire anyway, would be my advice. Because, they're bold enough to call, they believe in self-development enough, and as only if they call and, you have a good conversation. Obviously, if you call and they're screaming at you, then not great.
Yeah.
But yeah, cool. Thanks for the feedback. It's good to know. And I've tried lots of different ways. I see lots of different ways. And also within the Willow product, we're thinking about introducing this kind of asynchronous video feedback where you can just record your answer having watched their video and say, look, this is what I loved about it. This is what you could develop, that kind of stuff. So it's really valuable for us to get your feedback on it too.
Cool.
Is there anything? So I guess we're kind of wrapping up. It's been a super good conversation. Doesn't feel like 36 minutes has gone by, and I really hope that you found it useful and do find it useful. Everybody listening as well. Have you got any final advice, either for recruiters or for candidates? Actually, just from your experience in the market.
Yeah, and I want to say too, coming from a high volume sort of D2C sales environment, I know exactly what it's like to work directly with people, have a lot on your plate, and just need to produce and ultimately perform. So I see exactly where recruiters of all creeds and processes and philosophies in terms of how they go about it, I can see exactly why things are done the way they're done. At the end of the day, we're answering to our bosses and our numbers, and so I can see that all of this stuff that we're talking about is really kind of going the extra mile. I still think what you put out into the world, you get back. But at the same time, I have empathy towards the situation. And especially right now with the applicant pool being so big, they have so many potential people that they need to be trying to get to find the best person for the job. So that's kind of all to say, I don't take anything personally, any experience that I've had with any recruiter, because ultimately, we all know what it's like to be busy professionals. But I'll say this in terms of, let's give advice to candidates, since I feel like with recruiters could probably use a little bit of a break on this. But I would say to candidates, take the huge challenge that is the job search in stride. If you think about the dynamic where, for millions of years, our brains have developed being part of tribes. And that was a given. You're part of a tribe. You're in it. Sure, maybe you can kind of raise up in the ranks. Maybe you can gain more influence. Maybe you can even become the leader. But that's all the same dynamics within our companies. And then let's say you get thrown out of the tribe. That's death. that's death, and that you're done. So for us to have this sense of anxiety and fear, especially when you're trying to go knock door to door on all these other tribes and say, hey, can I talk to you?
Please let me in your tribe.
Please. There's lions out here, right?
Yeah.
And so this is all very, very real. These dynamics, this friction you have in your head this is where it's coming from. So it's never going to feel comfortable. It's never going to feel right. It's never going to feel fully human. And you can kind of feel like you're dying a little bit throughout the process and have some existentialism. But I think the reason I bring that up is just to have perspective on why we feel the way we do. And I think understanding that allows us to give us tools to overcome that. And so what I would say is then use this to get super creative in terms of your approach. Keep reaching out to people. Ask as many people as you can for feedback. And, and then post on LinkedIn as well. Post your thoughts, post your journey, post whatever it is that you think might help people in their job search. I started doing that. Now I'm having a great conversation with Andrew. I had a conversation with 2 directors yesterday. He gave me feedback on my interview answers and my resume. And guess what? One of them told me to tell a story instead of tell me about yourself. And that's the one that I started with today. So in any case, I wouldn't have known that unless I was putting myself out there. So I would say take advantage of the opportunity and view it as a way to help others. And I think things will come back around.
Amazing. Great advice, Josh. Thank you so much. Final thing is just recruiters, if you're listening, please get in contact with Josh. How would people contact you other than, just the standard LinkedIn?
Yeah. They can email me at Joshua T as in Thomas Cohn COHN @gmail.com, and that's one way to get a hold of me. But I think the best way is just connect with me on LinkedIn. I'm on there every single day, and that way we can set something up that way too. And I'm looking forward to meeting anybody. And even if it's a recruiter that wants to talk to me about, hey, this is the other side of the story, and this is how you could get better. Please, I'm all ears. Amazing. I want to know how I can improve as a candidate. And ultimately get more opportunities. So please reach out in any capacity. And Andrew, thank you so much for the extra time. And it was great getting to know you and chatting with you. And you really are, I think, doing a great thing here for people. So thank you.
Cool. I wish I could do it more. Thank you very much for your time. I hugely appreciate the candor, or radical candor, should I say. To refer back, and hopefully, I think a lot of the stuff you've talked about, recruiters know anyway, in terms of like giving better feedback, in terms of ensuring that you bring the best out of a candidate with good questions. I think the mid-sized companies like paying for your adverts on LinkedIn and making sure that you're visible is totally like so super interesting and something that people should really think about. Are candidates finding you? Are the best candidates finding you? So really, really great advice. Thank you so much for sharing it. And best of luck. I'll obviously share this far and wide, and hopefully we can catch up in however long, and you'll be settled into your new role, building the future sales team. But really appreciate it.
Yes, awesome. Thank you so much, Andrew.
Sure.